Hello everyone and welcome to the oNiD Sim Hound LMU 100 Series 2 powered by Coach Dave. And well, you join us at the Circuit of the Americas, but not the Grand Prix layout. We're on the National Circuit, the 2.3 mile layout with 19 turns and a lap record of a 1 minute 33.284 held by Johnny O'Connell in a Cadillac CTSV. And well, yes, this is the first round of the championship. Round two's coming next week from Interlagos, and then we go to Monza, Sebring, Fuji, and Le Mans, ending on the 24th of August for our 6-week championship. And well, a bit of a shake-up in the commentary booth. We've stolen one of the drivers. I am joined by Angela Scott. How are you doing today?
I'm a little mixed. I wanted to be out on the track racing in this series, but no, I've ended up here in the commentary booth. It was a very fun season, very interesting season strategically last season, and this season will be much the same. As Tom mentioned, very few changes between last season and this season. Slightly different calendar, only one class, only the hypercars on track, which means you're not going to be getting held up behind a GT3. Could increase the race by one lap, make things, just change the strategy complexion that little bit. But we're starting here, very technical track, COTA National. We cut out the entire back straight. Fuel saving, not going to be a thing this weekend. Tyre wear, though, could be very significant since you're practically always in a corner unless you're on the start-finish straight around here. We are in qualifying. It has begun a couple of minutes ago. So let's go and see who is on a lap. Let's start with Athel Basker, who's coming round the penultimate corner on, I believe, their first flying lap for our field into the final corner here. What will be the first benchmark from them? They cross line. So 120.488, and Johnny Seville, one of our older drivers from ACC, very quick driver on that game, falling at nearly 2/10 short on their opening runs, but 3T1, Athel Basker lighting up the rear wheels and going for a spin.
Yeah, Jonathan Seville joining us again on LMU rather than ACC, and that's a pretty decent first lap time from himself. Only just under 2 tenths back from Atal Baskar, who came second in the LMGT3 class last season in this championship. We come to Zach Finney now, and also I believe this is a change of car. Gone to the Of Course 499P, was running in the Toyota last year, so that is a little shake-up from himself, obviously feeling like he wanted to change car, but a little bit of a lock there at on the front right, yeah, I can't say it, front right tire. And as he comes around the rest of this lap, he's currently green in the first sector, but how do you think he'll do around the middle part of this circuit?
Yeah, the middle part is very technical. I think he's actually invalidated the lap as no middle sector times come up. Let's go to Elvin Blomqvist, also in a Ferrari, coming through the long right-hander for swinging the car into the penultimate corner. Picks up the inside curb nicely. Don't run too wide, which they don't. Keep a couple of wheels within the white lines. It's not going to be a pole lap here as they come out of the final corner again, using all of the exit curb. Cross line, it's 121.555, and that will put them up to P4, currently a second off the top.
Yeah, decent lap time and the fastest of the Ferraris so far. Last season's champion, Alfie Bevan, currently 1.5 seconds off of the fastest time in this session. Zach Silver, running again in the Cadillac V Series R, comes up to cross the start-finish line and, well, I think stays at the bottom of the times for now. Nick Manders currently running in 17th, waiting for their first flying lap. Is obviously green in both the first and middle sector, as this is their first flying lap. So now, as they come around the final corner now, put the power back on to come down the start-finish straight. Let's see where Nick Manders will pop into, comes across the line now, and we'll see where he goes up to when the time screen updates, or it may have been invalidated actually.
Yeah, I think that was invalidated. Was a very slow middle sector, either way, was a few seconds off the pace. However, Zach Feeney, 0.14 down in the first sector on our pulsator, but 0.134 up. They're 6 thousandths off by the end of the middle sector. Can they pull it back in the fell sector? No, they're a bit slower through there. And actually, Seville goes to the top of the boards at the same time in the Cadillac, just slightly improving, less than half a tenth in front of Athol Basker. This is going to be a tight fight for the front, especially when we also consider Ben Shawley, who is coming into the middle sector, but they're backing out on this lap. Might have invalidated through the shortcut chicane we take on this national layout.
Yeah, Ben Shawley, very quick last season as well, but did have a few DNFs, so we'll be hoping for a clean turn 1, but that can be very tricky here at COTA. So we come to Dmitro Yaroshenko, currently down in 14th position, was running in the LMGT3 class last season and has stayed with Ferrari, but is now obviously in the 499P as well in the AF course colours as he comes around the final 2 corners. Was 8 tenths off in the first sector, and it was a little bit better in the middle sector, only 3 tenths off, but will come out of the final corner now, currently 3.8 seconds off of the fastest time in this session, crosses the line and moves up to 10th. That's a decent improvement, and to move inside the top 10 just ahead of Simon Harris as we come to Jacob behind.
Jacob currently sitting in 13th place, 2.7 seconds off the top. Has lost half second this lap in the first sector, 7 tenths in the middle sector. So they are on pace to maybe gain a couple of positions. They're not too far behind Simon Harris and Ronar Butolfsson. If they get really good final sector here, maybe could sneak into the top 10. See Tyler Hammer bumps themselves up to 7th place, a little wide from Jacob. Might have invalidated the lap here, but it's not certain. It's not an instant validation if you go off the lap. You just need the tracker to go back to green. Is an improvement in the end. Jacob Hine up to P11, clear by a couple of tenths.
Yeah, and well, we'll come to Charlie Morgan. He's green in the middle sector, but 9 tenths off of the fastest time in the session, but currently sits 16th out of the time so far. So is actually, now 17th out of the time so far. So he's currently at the bottom of the cars that have set time in this session. So we'll surely be hoping for an improvement as they come up towards the start-finish line. Now we'll come across the line in the Hertz Team COTA liveried Porsche, and it is an improvement in the end. I think it is. Yes, it has improved up to 15th position, just ahead of Parkin and Zach Silver, who is currently at the bottom of the time. Still waiting for the time from Nick Manders as well, and Townsend running in 19th position.
Alvin Blomqvist on a slightly better lap here, coming towards the final corner. Currently sitting P7, just needs a little bit of time to get themselves in front of Johnny Ashley, who sits in P6. Not improving in the final sector, and did not improve on that final lap time. Let me just double check as they jump over the curb at T1. Yeah, actually fell a little bit short, and it's going to return to pit lane, maybe grabbing a new set of tyres. So we switch now to Wagner Marquez in the Peugeot, running the winged version, the newer version. They'll be a little more stable around here than if anyone is running the wingless version. We've seen a couple of them in our Wednesday Sim Hound Academy series, but I'm not sure if we'll see any on the grid this season. Now I have the final corner for them, 2 personal best sectors. Will it be a third? It is indeed. And yeah, new personal best 21.8 puts them up into P9 ahead of Tom Watson by 17 thousandths of a second.
So close, separating them as well. And it's still new to the platform is Marquez. 38 stars, including this one on SimGrid, as Zach Silver still running in 17th, would surely be hoping for a better lap time. Is green in the first and middle sectors, is a bit of a margin off of the pole time so far. Hoped by Ben Shawley now with a 1 minute 19.9. But Silver comes out to the final corner now and will head up towards the start-finish line in the Cadillac. Let's see what he can do. Comes across the line. It's an improvement, I think.
It is. It's a 23.8, but not enough to get themselves off of 17, so they jump over the T1 curb and then go for a little spin on the exit. Let's head to Simon Harris. Actually, no, let's switch to Charlie Morgan, who's at pretty much identical spots going through the middle sector. Simon wasn't improving in the middle sector. Charlie not improving in the first sector. So quite even between the two of these, but I think Charlie is just a little better off at the moment. Lost a couple of tenths, losing 8 tenths compared to the fastest time in the first sector. Another 9 tenths in the middle sector. Currently sitting over 3 seconds off. Can they improve on this lap? And in the end, they do not improve this lap, losing quite a bit of time in the final sector. It is a very difficult final sector. See Dimitri across the line, and actually it's Nick Manders making improvement up to P12 in that Porsche that they were also racing in last season.
Yeah, I think a change of livery though was running in the Porsche Penske colours. Now it's gone to the Hertz Team COTA colours. Now come to Ben Shorley, currently top of the times, not improving, but Jonathan Seville is up. Was green, personal green in the first sector, but it was about just under 2 tenths off of the fastest first sector, but is purple by just under a tenth in the middle sector. So Jonathan Seville is going to need something from this final sector to try and put this Cadillac onto pole position. We'll come around the final corner now. Puts the power back down to go onto the start finish straight. We'll come up towards the start finish line, but no, it's not enough to go onto pole position. It's still just over a tenth back from Ben Shorley.
Let's see, Zach Feeney is not improving on a lap. Let's try and see who it is. I think Wagner is gaining a bit of time in the first sector, down a little bit of time in the middle sector. Can they close the lap out? They've got a bit of a gap. They need to find 3 tenths if they want to make a place up to the next race. We are into the final 3 minutes of the session. It is an improvement for them, but and yeah, they will jump. Sorry, no, they'll still stay in P9, but Manders in the background will go to P12 now with another improvement. They're getting into a bit of a stride later on in the session. They are currently, I believe, the lead Porsche, but seem to be struggling a little bit right here.
Yeah, also, I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, but Johnny, I think that's Johnny Ashley up into 5th position, ahead of Alfie Bevans in the I was going to say hypercar class, but we're all hypercars now this time. But yeah, up to a 5th position overall for Johnny Ashley. So impressive time from himself. Only 1.1 seconds back as we see Nick Manders green in the first sector, a personal best in the first sector, but 4 attempts off of the overall time. We'll have to see what Nick is able to pull out of their middle sector. We'll be getting the times for any second now as he.
I think they've invalidated.
Yeah, and actually, especially on the inside there.
Yeah, let's try and find someone else on a lap. Let's go to Runner Buffson. Actually, they're not on a great opening sector. We'll see them through to the middle sector, but you see that chicane that they've just gone through. That's the point where it's very easy to invalidate and see them just locking the brake just as the camera switches, and they'll get going again. But yeah, 4.5 seconds down there in the middle sector, they will not be improving. Try and find someone who's on a good lap. Athel Basker has invalidated. No first sector time through for them. Nick Manders going on for another lap. Let's jump on board with them and let's see. They're threading the car through the S's.
Yep, riding on board now. And it's weird to see it come through here. No, that's oh dear. That was not how you thread it through the S's, as Nick has just spun it to the inside of the corner, and that will be it for Nick Manders' session with only 44 seconds to go. We'll come to Dmitry Yaroshenko. Came 3rd last season in the LMGT3 class in this series. Currently runs in 11th position, and this is their out lap though by the looks of it. So this will be us riding on board for their first flying lap of the session. Currently sitting in 11th, so we'll see if they improve.
Yeah, as we ride on board, let's again bring up the HUD. Braking into T1, very difficult braking zone. They run in deep as you crest. Just as you get to the turning point, so you've got to turn, brake, all while going over a crest. Makes it very difficult to balance. Then as we head into the S's, a little bit of braking into the right-hander, quite a bit more braking into left-hander, bit of throttle then, braking for this left-hander. Got to keep the car straight, otherwise they'll very easily twitch out. They'll jump through the chicane, swing into left-hander onto the back straight. Short dash then to turn 12, locks the rear brakes and slides their way into turn 12. That will not be an improvement for them, and they try to drive out of the track through the little break there is. We'll go to Zach Feeney. A lot of cars in the pit lane actually not improving is Zach Feeney, but someone who is improving is Athel Basker. They're trying to go for one last charge to get themselves on the front. Whoa, slide through the penultimate corner. Now towards the final corner. Runs out wide. They might get away with it. They cross the line. And no, it looks like the lap was invalidated there. And so that looks like, as the last driver said lap time, that will set our grid.
Yeah, and interestingly, Ben Shawley, according to the entry list I have here, currently entered as an AM as well. So he's taken the AM and overall pole position for this session. Jonathan Seville obviously takes the pro pole position, but will be starting overall in second as part of the start of this race. And yeah, we're only moments away.
Yeah, we are not far away from getting to the start of this race. First round of a new season. Should be a good one. It'll be interesting to see. The strategies were very interesting throughout last season. It'll be interesting to see, maybe with a little bit more experience now for our drivers, how they change. We also have those drivers that are switching from
teams and drivers
from the GT3 class to the hypercar class, but we'll get back to that. We'll have a full run through of our starting order, starting, Tom, with Ben Shawley.
Yeah, Ben Shawley comes back to the series, and it is pole position. Jonathan Seville returns on it as well, but can only sit in second. We go on to row 2. It's Atal Baskar, came second last season in LMGT3, joined by Zach Finney in the Ferrari. Row 3, we've got Johnny Ashley moving up from LMGT3, with last season's champion Alfie Bevans in 6th position. Row 4, Elvin Blomqvist, and he's joined by Tyler Hammer in one of the Toyotas. Then we go to row 5, where we've got debutant Wagner Marquez and Tom Watson in 10th. Then on row 6, we've got Dmitry Yaroshenko, and in 12th, we've got Nick Manders in the first of the Porsches. On row 7, we have Charlie Morgan lining up in 13th, and Jacob Heim in the Alpine in 14th. Then we've got Runo Bertolson in 15th position, and in 16th, we've got the next Cadillac of Simon Harris on row 9. It is Zach Silver, and 18th, rounding out the grid, is Alex Parkin. As you know, rounding out the grid, I don't think they set a time in the end, is Matt Townsend in 19th in the Proton competition fat liveried Porsche, and that is our grid.
Matt Townsend actually isn't with us. They were feeling ill at the last moment, just not quite able to sign out, so hence I'm still being included. So drivers making their way from our dummy grid, setting off for our rolling start. Very wide turn 1, but very tightens up a lot on that apex. Very inviting on the entry, but very easily goes wrong on the apex.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen it today in the qualifying session. A couple of drivers being caught out on the apex of the corner. And I think what's going to be interesting here as well to see how the top runners in the session deal with it. They're all very close over the session. Eventually just nipping it from Jonathan Seville, but we've got to keep an eye out for Baskar as well, second in the LMGT3 last season. Zach Finney was always someone that could be, was probably on the podium in the hypercar class last season. And Johnny Ashley also very quick in 5th, and also last season's champion Alfie Bevan in 6th position, and Elvin Blomqvist as well, finishing on the podium last season. Those top 7 within a chance, and we are racing at round 1 of the LMU 100 series, brought to you by Coach Dave. And to the inside goes Jonathan Seville. He's looking for it down into someone. He goes deep, he blocks up, opens wide, then surely squeezes Atal Baskar to the inside, and it looks like the dive from Jonathan Seville has not worked out. He's dropped to 3rd position, could drop to 4th position, is under threat from moving Alfie Bevan, who moves up the field. It looks like Ben Shawley is running away in the lead of this race. Seville has secured his 3rd place position, and we've got 3 air-force surprise all going together. Finney, Bevan and Blomqvist all 4th, 5th and 6th at the moment, and they're being put under pressure by Johnny Ashley, who's dropped to 7th from that start. We have a yellow flag. That is one of the COTAs. I assume it's parking there. It is parking, just turning the car around to head towards the S's. So it's been involved in something on that one. Obviously, Townsend in the pit did not start this race due to illness, as we know, and another one of the Jota Porsches there. I'm not sure if you could shed any light on
that is Nick Manders, who's fallen into strife at the start of this race. I think getting caught up with Alex Parkin, or maybe Alex Parkin getting caught up with his issues. Johnny Ashley got per start off the rolling start. Fell down to 7th place, all right back in front of Zach Feeney, as we have another yellow flag. That's still Parkin having more issues, maybe with some damage as they try and recover back to pit lane. But another thing I want to touch on as we look to Johnny Ashley is the tyre information. I can see the red sidewall on the side of Johnny's car. He is running a full set of hard tyres, only driver in the field to do so. We have some drivers running a mixed set of medium and hards. We don't know exactly which way round they're running, not unless we have a little look at them. One of those is Alfie Bevan. Can see that both right hand side tyres are medium from the yellow sidewall. Maybe hopefully we'll get a camera angle that shows us the other side and we'll see if he's running both left hand side hards or just a front. Perhaps we'll see here hard front left, medium rear left. So you can see tyre changing different throughout the field. We'll have to see those. The hard tyre probably explains why Johnny struggled at start, struggling with tyre temperature, but as the race goes on he should find himself maybe a little bit stronger as the tyres start to wear and his don't wear as much. And of course, big question, will drivers change tyres, and if so, how many? 2 tyres, 4 tyres? We'll have to see. Johnny running a little bit wide there in the background.
I just want to talk about as well, in the AM classifications, obviously surely leading overall and in the amateur class, and then the next car in the amateur class currently runs in 9th position. It's the Alpine of Jacob Hine, and 3rd position in the amateur class is Dmitro Yaroshenko, who's currently running in 10th in the overall standings in the Ferrari in this race. So that's how the AM class currently stands, and then obviously it's Seville leading the pros, followed by Bascar and Blomqvist.
Jacob Hine, another one of the drivers that had a good start, up 5 positions, as well as Zach Silver, obviously taking a little bit of advantage from those that had their struggles, like Alex Park and Nick Manders. Zach Finney, of the drivers struggling with a bad start, down 3 places from 4th on the grid. Wagner Marquez and Tom Watson down 7 places towards the back. I believe I did see Tom in the pits for a moment. Yes, he was, but I think that's for a drive-through penalty, perhaps. As he's not come up for a pit stop just yet. So we'll keep following as the field is already starting to spread out a little bit, but actually it's Alfie Bevan that's pushing on, trying to close up to Elvin Blomqvist, trying to get themselves up to 4th place and top of Ferrari.
Yeah, and he's really tucked in behind Elvin here. As where will Alfie go? Is he close enough to dive to the inside? I don't think he is, and Elvin has kind of got that route as they head up towards turn 1 and now towards the right hand at turn 2. A little bit twitchy at the rear end there by Alfie, as they now come up towards the fast S's. Reminds me of Magnus and Beckett's at Silverstone, and Alfie looking like he's taking a lot more curve compared to what Elvin is able to take. You can see he is closing up into this section as they now come into the more narrow part of the S's bit of the circuit, jumping over the curves onto the back straight now and into the left-hander. And it's a little bit awkward, a lot of corners on this layout of the circuit. I haven't got that big long straight to help you slipstream your rival ahead and try and get the move done, but you can see Alfie's trying to take alternate lines to Elvin to try and find a gap to get through, but there's nothing opening up for him yet. As all in the background, there's a half spin there for Johnny Ashley, and I think Zach Finney may be trying to go on the attack. I'm not sure if he's got up the inside. He is up the inside, and Johnny is squeezing him to the apex of the corner. The Ferrari's trying to stay in there and right wiggling over the curb. Luckily, Johnny was just ahead as the little bit of a tank stopper there for Zach Finney, but he was able to save it as they come on to start a new lap now. And what this has done, it's obviously moved Johnny Ashley ahead of Zach Finney. It kept Johnny Ashley ahead in this battle, but it has brought the other oNiD racing car of, I think think that's Tyler Hammer in the other Toyota running up behind. So it is putting him under a little bit of pressure now, Zach Finney, this mistake from Johnny Ashley, because he can focus on attacking Johnny, but he's now going to have to think about defending from Tyler Hammer as well in this race.
Yeah, it's a difficult place to be in when you have to both attack and defend. Makes it difficult as going for a move is Zach Finney looking to the outside of left-hander. That brings us onto the shortcut over the jump at the chicane, but not able to make it the long way round. Just looking aggressively for that move. Of course, Zach Finney down 3 places, has a little bit more pace than Johnny in front. Yeah, just has to make that difficult move.
Which is going to be tricky, especially in this oNiD sandwich that Zach Finney finds themselves in at the moment. As well, still as they come through these fast right-handers to end the lap again, it's looking quite impossible for Zach Finney to try and get past. And we know how strong Johnny can be as a defensive driver, but that's not going to help. Runs a little bit wide, but Zach Finney's still a little bit too far back to take advantage. And all this is doing, Zach Finney is looking a little bit weak now to Tyler Hammer as they come back onto the start-finish straight, as they are about just under 4 tenths apart as they come up towards turn 1. Not really in overtaking proximity. Finney's going to try and go around the outside of Johnny Ashley, but I think this is his mind games play at the moment. He's trying to park that Toyota on the apex of the corner, forcing Finney to the outside, and that puts him under pressure from Tyler Hammer. So Johnny is really just trying to back up the 499P into the other oNiD Toyota as things currently stand, and it's looking like an effective strategy because it is really giving Zach Finney a bit of a headache, as we are only 1 hour and we've still got 1 hour and 32 minutes to go in this one.
Yeah, still a long way to go. Of course, we have those pit stops as we have Jacob Hine dropping down a place, but getting back past Dmitry Yoroshenko. So just fighting for the final top 10 positions. We also still have Alfie Bevan fighting to get past Elvin Blomqvist, still there. So we're seeing 2 drivers, both in Ferraris perchance, faster than cars in front of them, but really struggling to make overtakes. How long we'll see before one of the drivers is able to sort of make their way through, crack through the gap, and start trying to run away. A little bit of a lock-up there for Elvin Blomqvist. Alfie tries to get to the inside, but on that tighter line, not able to carry the momentum, and thus Elvin holds on for now, but under quite a bit of pressure from their fellow Ferrari driver. You can see Alfie able to carry more speed through the S's, but doesn't really have anywhere to go. Big slide as they get on to the brakes for the left-hander. Luckily able to keep the car facing the right way, but shows you just how much these drivers are pushing.
Yeah, really pushing each other at the moment are the pair of them. Elvin Blomqvist obviously still leading the way, but Alfie, you can see, just trying to position the car to stay in the mirrors of Elvin Blomqvist, put him under all sorts of pressure to just try and force him into some kind of mistake. As you can see, look, Alfie much more on the apex of the corner there, just trying to stay in Elvin's sights, trying to stress him out as they come now along these long right-handers. Elvin has actually slowly started to streak away, but it's gap still under 4 tenths as they come into the final couple of corners. Sideways, that's one of the Peugeots, that's Wagner Marquez into the side of Nick Manders, tried to go up the inside there as they headed into turn 14, and well, there wasn't really any move, and I think a little jink there from Nick Manders spun the Peugeot around, and well, that has cost them both dearly, as they've both now dropped to 15th and 16th, with Marquez involved in some lap 1 incidents as well, I believe. So he was currently trying to make his way back up through the order, and now has to, well, reset, go again, as we come back to this battle now as they go through the S's, trying to go to the inside there was Elvin Blomqvist, not Elvin Blomqvist, Alfie Bevan, but Blomqvist still just ahead as they now come into the mini S's section, now back onto the back straight again and right into the rear nearly is Alfie. He's really pushing that other 499P along at the moment, and well, it seems like Elvin is doing a great job defensively and not leaving any gaps for Alfie to try and get through. So as they now come up towards the mid part of this lap, up through 14 and 15, It's again parking on the apex a little bit there was Elvin Blomqvist, but yeah, it's just a bit of a mind conundrum here for Alfie Bevan, because he needs to figure out where Elvin is a little bit weaker, where he's going to make a mistake, and that's where he needs to get through. But at the moment, it seems like Elvin's pretty strong everywhere.
Yeah, Elvin is just strong enough to hold on, much like with the battle further back. Johnny Ashley still defending from Zach Finney, who's still under pressure themselves from Tyler Hammer. Tyler, one of the drivers, running a hard front left tire, which takes a real pounding through the triple right-hander through the final sector. But we'll actually get a little further back after that moment we seen coming into the final sector through the double left-hander. Very difficult braking zone, and Wagner, as they tried to look to the inside, just locked the rears and got into the door of Nick Manders. Is going to try again here into T1, actually takes it more careful on the brakes, but Nick Manders runs it in a little bit deep. Wagner looks to the inside, but ends up having to jump over the curb. That certainly doesn't help them get past, still sit behind for now. We also had changed position. Yarnchenko and Jacob Hein still fighting away, and Yaroshenko has got themselves back up to P9, and Charlie Morgan is starting to join this battle. The fry a little bit wide there through turn 12, and in the background Simon Harris in the Cadillac starting to close in as well on this battle, so we could have a four-way battle soon enough as these drivers struggle to make overtakes, but are still sort of locked in these battles.
Yeah, Yaroshenko with that move up to second position in the amateur class, and this battle that's currently happening in front of us between Charlie Morgan and Jacob Hein will be for the final podium spot in the amateur class. Jacob Hein in third in the AMs, with Charlie Morgan currently in fourth. So this battle does have a little bit of stake to it. So does this one. Elvin Blomqvist still running ahead of Alfie. Alfie trying to get the switchback out of turn one, but still can't get alongside and pass. So as they come up towards the S's again, this is when Alfie's quite strong, but it's not really an overtaking part of the circuit, so he gets right tucked into the rear of Elvin Blomqvist, but there's no real track to take advantage of. So as they now come across the curbs again, absolutely batter them again, as Alfie likes to run a little bit wider out of here, gets a little bit tail happy as well as they turn now onto the brakes. We'll get back onto the power now, but again, all he can do is follow, and it's really frustrating him, as you can see, with that little bit of front end grip loss, as he got a little bit squirrely coming out of the corner, and still just trying to stay in the mirrors of Elvin. Just all he can do is keep applying pressure and hoping there's some sort of slip up from Elvin.
Yeah, Alfie will be wanting to get past Blomqvist. He feels like he has more pace and wants to see if he can close in on the top three, but it's just stuck behind Blomqvist. The gap is opening up lap by lap. It's nearly 8 seconds to Basker. It's about 13 seconds up to Ben Shawley in the lead. Shows you just sort of the time that these two are losing. Alfie, again, close in the slipstream as they head towards T1. Is it close enough for a move into T1? No. Elvin a little bit defensive. See how much Alfie closes in, as Elvin arguably a little too tight on the curb, clips a little bit of the undercut on the inside, but doesn't compromise them enough for Alfie to get past. Look how close within a car length as they come into the S's. Alfie definitely stronger throughout this section, but just impossible to make a move. Big snap on the brakes for Alfie. They had to cut the left-hander, keep it going. They might pick up a couple of track limit points for that, in which case they'll be a little bit closer to getting a drive-through, which we might see a few drivers do over the course of the race, which will be very hurtful to them. But just see how difficult it can be over the bumps on this COTA circuit. Of course, the bumps getting worse year on year here, and yeah, they've got to a pretty bad state here in the Mon Ultimate, which is proving to be a real challenge for our drivers, especially in these top class prototypes.
Yeah, and it shows how much Alfie's willing to risk at this stage in the race. Still 1 hour and 24 minutes to go, but it's still pushing it so much the car can get completely sideways. Going to the outside, this is for fourth position. It's going to try and get the switchback out of turn one, but parking it on the exit of the corner was Elvin there to try and stall some of Alfie's pace coming up towards the turn one. Now we start our incline up the hill. Alfie's going to go to the inside. He decides there's no room. Elvin runs a little bit wide, locks the front left tyre. One of the tyres moves out the way. I think that's how he's parking coming out of the pit lane, as they now come through the long right-hander. And again, Alfie's just not been able to take advantage of the little mistake there from Elvin. Melvin, and it's going to get right into his rear again. But you see, just losing all that front end grip through the S's section, trying to stay in the toe of Blancfist. They'll come over the curbs again. He's right in his rear. He's just all over him. He can't. It's literally symmetry between the two of them as they now come into the right-hander again, and it's just Alfie's going to look decent on exit, but it just is still not close enough to get the move done.
Yeah, actually, a little bit wide here is Blomqvist, and Alfie is now trying to look to the outside. It's a long way to go. Runs a little bit wide, has a little bit twitch, trying to get on the throttle, but it'll be the inside for the triple right-hander. They come together sideways for Alfie. Manages to gather the car up amazingly and carries on. These two still fighting, but things are getting closer. Starting to have tensions are rising. Alfie maybe getting a little bit more desperate to make a move, but the podium places are just getting further and further out of reach. Is it already too late for potential P3 for Alfie? Well, they'll have to think about that once they eventually get past Blomqvist. It's been quite a while already. How much longer will it take? Will he even get the move done is a question. Will he have to wait for the strategy when we get to around the 50-minute mark and we see a whole load of pit stops? It's anyone's guess at this point. Is overtaking just extremely difficult around this shortened layout of COTA.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose this is kind of helpful for Johnny Ashley. He has a 1 second, or just under 1 second gap to Zach Finney, but I'm sure he's probably not pushing as much as these two are. So we may see some, well, the gap coming down near the end of the stint as he's just not having to push as hard as both these guys are. As again, Alfie trying to find a little bit of room to sneak his car down the inside, but still nothing really opening up yet for him. He's going to try and look to the inside again into turn 14, but still isn't close enough. He's going to try and get a decent exit, but he's a little bit upset over that inside sausage curb, so it means that he has kind of fallen back ever so slightly. Still less than 3 attempts in this battle between the two of them as they come into the penultimate corner now, and we'll come up towards the final corner in just a second. Not as close as he has been on other laps, Alfie. Apparently still just about between 4 and 3 attempts separate the pair of them as they come on to start finish straight. It is improving as there's been an off for one of the Peugeots. I think that is Wagner Marquez again, so it's into the same corner again. Turn 15 has seemed to have been spun around or ran wide, or just some sort of incident, and sadly it's dropped them right back to 16th again. So the recovery drive continues again for poor Wagner Marquez after showing such great pace in the qualifying session. We'll come to a replay here. Let's see what's happened. He's fighting with one of the Cadillacs as they come up towards turns 12 and 13. Is going to try and look to the inside, then switches back to the inside for the left-hander, goes up the inside and just locks the rears by the looks of it and drifts around the corner, a little bit of Tokyo drift, and ends up losing a position or two there.
Yeah, it's sort of similar to what they were trying on Nick Manders, and was similar outcome, except there was contact between the two of them then. But yeah, Wagner trying to go for a move in that double left-hander. He's one of the better overtaking opportunities here, but you can just see how difficult the braking is into that corner, as we've seen multiple mistakes from them now. Zach Silver is leading this train of what was 4 cars, is becoming 5 cars now, as Tom Watson is also closing up on this battle after they had to take a little trip through pit lane and look to the inside for Bertolfsson. They're trying to get the move that Wagner has been struggling with. They've got themselves alongside, but it's the outside for this triple right-hander, and might actually let Nick Manders in the background there come attack them, but they run a little bit wide. Zach Silver was a little bit wide too. Bertolfsson wide again, allows Nick Manders to get alongside to the inside of the final corner and move down Nick Manders up to 14th place. Now it'll be up to them to try and challenge Zach Silver, but a bit of a poor exit here. Had a little bit wobbles, they ran a little bit wide, and Zach Silver opens up a gap now in the slipstream as they head towards turn 1. We've had an incident with Johnny Ashley, by the way. We'll catch a replay with it in a moment. No move here into T1, and these cars are going to follow themselves into the S's. So let's try and see what's happened with Johnny Ashley.
So it's got ahead of the... no, we're still ahead of the fire, and he's just lost it all by himself. Collects that left-hand curb, and it just seems to upset the rear end of the car. And it's just a little half spin, so only ends up losing 2 positions there. But poor for Johnny Ashley there. He was currently a second ahead of, I think that was Zach Finney, but sadly fallen back now, and it was, I think, started this race in 5th, now is down to 8th as we come back to the battle with Zach Silver still ahead of this massive Porsche brawl.
Yeah, the Porsches side by side again, but Tolfson trying to get back past us. I think Nick Manders had to go trying to get past Silver, got compromised, and but Tolfson sensing the opportunity is trying to get back to 2nd place in this and hasn't quite been able to get it done though, as actually looking to the inside now for the penultimate corner. That's an opportunistic move, runs both of them wide, and through goes the Peugeot, the Toyota. Tom Watson looking to get past, but Tolfson as well, and really that's just an overly ambitious move. It's a very short braking zone into that penultimate corner, so to get yourself alongside, going in way too quickly, both cars off the track, and giving a place to the Peugeot, who's now going to try and attack Zach Silver and try not to make another mistake, locking their rear brakes for what would be the 3rd time if they were to make that mistake again.
Yeah, and well, Wagner obviously, I think, qualified inside the top 10 for this one, so would theoretically should have the pace on Zach Silver to get the move done, but that was a lot of smoke. Oh no, it's Zach Silver has lost it in the S's this time. It's gone off into that right-hand side gravel trap. And there we go, the camera pans across and he's rejoined the circuit, has Zach Silver, but that is the cork in the bottle, truly popped and out the way. That's going to let those Porsches behind spread their legs a little bit if they continue on in this, as we'll see what happened here. And it's similar to Johnny Ashley, just goes to change direction with the car and it just, the back end overtakes him and a little bit of contact with that Goodyear advertising safe barrier.
Yeah, it's very easy. It's so bumpy through the S's there. Very easy to make a mistake when the car gets until under braking. But we've got battle for P10. Jacob Hine trying to fend off Charlie Morgan and has run very wide there. Has Jacob Hine given up not just 1 but 2 spots? Simon Harris getting 3 as well, as Simon is now going to be trying to attack Charlie Morgan. But yeah, Jacob Hine made up a few places. Started 14th this race. Now dropping back towards that position now after having a good start, but not as good. Simon Harris was qualified down in 16th place, now up to P11, 5 places gained. Biggest gainer this race at the moment is Simon Harris. Hopefully we don't see any mistakes from them, and they hold on to that, if not continue to improve as they put the pressure on Charlie Morgan. Can see the Frey Yaroshenko, after fighting with Jacob Hine earlier on, has pulled 6.5 seconds clear of this battle now.
Yeah, and the thing is with this battle as well, it won't be an issue in terms of pro standings, because it does mean Charlie Morgan, in AM standings, as Charlie Morgan now sits in 3rd in the amateur class, but Simon Harris is a pro, so Jacob Hines still sitting in 4th in the amateur standings. There's up into turn 1, it's a move looking for the position. It is Alfie trying to go around the outside, make it work the long way round. It's going to give him the momentum heading down the hill into the S's. He's going to look down the inside of Elvin Blomqvist, who's left a little bit of a gap open. They're going to try and run side by side, but in the end, Alfie, with an hour and 16 minutes still to go in this race, thinks better of it and decides to hold position still. But this battle really been raging on for quite a while now, and well, Alfie just needs to find a way through, because it really is, Elvin is holding him up, and I think it's, as you said earlier, it may come down to a strategic call by Alfie in order to get past Elvin, because Elvin really a defensive masterclass so far.
Yeah, strategy is already at play, just as we look at the tyres again. Remember, Alfie running the hard tyre on the front left, Blomqvist medium tyres all run. So as we go further and further into the race, the front left for Elvin will probably be struggling a little bit more and more, especially through this triple right-hander. That's where Alfie will start to see an advantage from running that hard tyre, and maybe that could just open up an opportunity. It has seemed like sort of through the penultimate corner, that's where Alfie has been the closest, maybe potential for a move into the penultimate corner, but we've seen how that went for Tolfson. Really didn't work out for them. Could likely be the same, but actually big defense here. Alfie's got a good run off the final corner, swoops back to the racing line as Elvin hanging tight to the pit walls, trying to get a comeback, trying to get a good run out of the first turn, but it's not good enough. They're right on the rear bumper of Blomqvist as they come towards the S's. Again, nowhere to pass through here. We'll just have to follow, try and wait for an opportunity elsewhere. But Alfie fighting ever so hard. We're going to take a little moment as Zach Silver made a another mistake recently, or sorry, this is the old one. He did cause a yellow flag just a few moments ago. We might be able to catch him. You can see he's actually really struggling here. Big suspension damage, it looks like, for Zach Silver, as that fry battle now makes its way past.
Yeah, it looked like he had front end damage to the car as well, so I wonder what's going on there for him anyway. As we see Elvin still ahead in this battle, just about as well, Alfie really throwing everything at this now, and looks like he has greater grip. Elvin running a little bit wide around here, and that's allowed Alfie to slip up the inside and make contact again, rubbing body panels. The pair of them are still rubbing body panels as they head through the fast left-hander. That compromises both of their exits into the final corner. And now, as they come on to the start finish straight again, and it's Elvin has run wide. That's going to give Alfie an opportunity to try and maybe slip it up the inside. He isn't close enough, though. He's almost pushing Elvin down the start finish straight, but has got to the left-hand side of the circuit, which will give him the inside for time one. But he's locked his front left tyre, and that's allowed Elvin straight back through. So back up into 4th position goes Elvin Blomqvist. The one opportunity for Alfie to get past, and he's squandered it as they go through the S's. The gap has opened up to nearly 4 attempts. Alfie's closed the gap back down again, though. But really, sure, Scotty, that was a wasted opportunity.
And that just shows how difficult it is to make that move. You know, was on the inside trying to break as low as they can, but of course off the racing line, didn't have as much grip, had that slight front left lock, and from the racing line, Elvin Blomqvist just swooped through, took the position back, and Bevan has to try again. He's been trying for the last nearly about 25 minutes for half a stint, and is still going to have to continue piling on the pressure. Zach Silver, as you can see on time tar, is into pit lane to repair that damage that they picked up. These two fighting away. I've also just noticed, let us switch, this driver here, Zach Feeney, is making gains. Unfortunately, we can't quite see that time. Tyler Hammer is also falling through, but it's now only just over 2 seconds in front of them to Alfie Bevan, who's still putting the pressure on Blomqvist, thinking about a move. Both of them sort of waving to defend.
Disqualification, Zach Finney, by the looks of it on our timing screen. I don't know if that's right, but it's just dropped to 19th.
That is interesting. We were just looking at him, and then, as you say, he's now disqualified. We don't have any reason for why he's been disqualified, unless he happens to share it with us. But yeah, surprise disqualification. It could have been track limits.
Yeah, I mean, when he was following this battle a few laps ago, I did see him cut one of the fast S's, so maybe he's abused track limits too much. Anyway, I shouldn't be talking because they're side by side heading into turn 15. Alfie trying to make it work around the outside. That will give him the inside again, coming into these fast right-handers into turn 16 now. He's got his car ahead. He's going to squeeze Elvin Blomqvist off of the circuit. Blomqvist completely off of the track as they now come into the left-hander, and it is done. Finally, Alfie Bevan up to 4th position. Elvin, well, a valiant defensive effort in the end, but it just seemed like Alfie had the grip, has the tyres, and has had the pace for the past 25 minutes. And as long as Elvin didn't make the move again, it looks like that is position done.
Yeah, trying to get a replay here if it loads. Maybe one day. No, we'll try again, perhaps, just to see how this move unfolded.
I was going to say, Yaroshenko dropping out of 2nd in the AM class, so I don't know if that was a pit stop or a mistake that's just happened, but has dropped down the order to 12th from 9th position by the looks of it. So that's has ramifications in the amateur standings. There you go now. So Yaroshenko are actually into the pit lane, so maybe a strategic call? I'm not too sure. Oh, no, it is damage. That is definitely crabbing.
Yeah, let's see if we can get a replay of this. Ooh, damage has already happened.
Ooh, and that may have been a Peugeot collecting them.
So we will try again. Nope, still has already happened.
Obviously, yeah, big ramifications for the AM standings. It does mean that Charlie Morgan now sits in second in that class with, I believe, Jacob Hind in the Alpine now back up into the podium positions in third. And I think this may be what happened. Running up into turn one, we'll have a look. Looks decent enough. Turns the car in. Looks all right. Gets on the exit. Now we'll come up towards the right-hander, and is it another little mistake through here? We've seen the kind of changes in direction has been unsettling the rears of some of the cars through this part of the circuit. We obviously saw it with Zach Silver, and the Ferrari will come into the corner now. No, has lost it into the braking zone and bang into the Goodyear safer barrier next to that tyre wall, and that's obviously where that damage has come from. It's just like everyone else through that section, maybe took a little bit too much curb, and it's really caused the car to bottom out and spin into that outside wall.
Yeah, and as you go through that change of direction to the right-hand side, we'll see as we go on board with Athol Basker, who's closing in on Seville in front of them. And have quietly just been closing gap. Both of them sort of equal in lap times, only about half a second between the two of them here. But as we go on board through these S's, you just have the constant change of directions into the right, into the left, then into this right-hander, and then onto the brakes. If you just hit the brakes at the wrong time when you're hitting a bump, swinging the car into the right-hander, braking for the left, that's just what can unsettle the car, and that's probably what's caused the mistake for Yaroshenko. It's going to be quite a long time in the pits for repairing. I'm surprised they didn't lose a wheel from how hard they hit the barrier there. So yeah, it's going to be a hefty repair time. They have actually just come out of the pits and they were stopped for 2 minutes and 8 seconds repairing their car, and they won't be able to make it to the end of the race from here. So it's going to be another pit stop in this race for Yaroshenko. Going to be difficult to get a good result from this.
Yeah, indeed. So just kept doing some admin work as well. Thank you, doggyboy_333 for following, and thank you, Mr. Egos 29 for following. And I'm not sure if you mentioned that was a Prime sub earlier, if my chat will scroll up far enough. There it was. Mr. ZK Sim Racing, thank you for the 5 months subscription as we return to the racing. And right onto the rear of Jonathan Seville is Atal Baskar, second in NMGT3 last season in this championship, as obviously he had to make the step up to the hypercar class in the Toyota, and he's up against the Cadillac V Series R of Jonathan Seville, making their return to oNiD Sunday Racing as they go through the S's now. And it seems like Jonathan's opened up the gap here, so it looks a little bit more comfortable over the curbs through that part of the circuit. About half a second still separates the pair of them as we make our way through this part of the circuit. And actually Jonathan doing a good job of opening this up, and it peaks at 8/10 there again, drops back down to 6 as they close up through these tight and twisty corners, but is doing a good job of opening that gap up. It is Jonathan Seville. Still an hour and 6 minutes of racing to go. You're watching the oNiD Sim Hound LMU 100 series, powered by Coach Dave Academy and brought to you by oNiD and Sim Hound, as we will come into the final corner again now. And the gap has opened up. It's stayed, actually, it's kind of hovering around a bit at the moment. It's currently just under half a second as they come onto the start-finish straight. And, well, a bit frustrating for Atal Baskar because, well, Jonathan is right there in front of him. You can see him. And, well, it just isn't close enough to think about any sort of move or any sort of attack yet on the Cadillac. And that's not going to help either. Not much traction coming out of turn 1.
Yeah, Basker did gain 3/10 a couple of laps ago, closed in, but then maybe just as they got closed in, his big snap there through the left-hander for Seville. Really good job to hold on to the car there. As talk about these drivers, these are another two that you can tell are really just pushing flat out. And, you know, so one lap Basker just closed in, got onto under the rear wing, and then just had a little bit of an iffy lap. Seville able to open the gap out once again, give himself a couple of car lengths to sort of ease the pressure. But Basker isn't going to be giving this one up too much. Tell you who wants to see this fight erupt will be Alfie Bevan, who is now 26.5 seconds back after that fight with Blomqvist, and is trying to close in as we have a yellow flag for Blomqvist in this shortcut of the lap. Let's get a replay of what's happened.
seems he's collected one of the Toyotas, the Tyler Hammer there as well. So he's coming for the S's again. He's taking a lot of curb, and it seems the curb has unsettled him, turning into the left-hander, spins sideways, and the Toyota has to make avoiding action, but actually ends up spinning on the outer side of the circuit, trying to recover the car. Does end up actually keeping the move, but and that's going to be rather helpful for Johnny Ashley as well. We're now only 4 seconds behind Tyler Hammer and Blomqvist after that little mistake, so that has brought Johnny probably back into contention, maybe for a top 5, as long as he is able to keep pushing and improving. Currently within 4 seconds, or just under actually 5 seconds of those guys. As we come to Wagner Marquez, has moved into 9th position, is fighting Charlie Morgan in the standings at the moment. I'm not sure if this is a battle for AMS at the moment, so I'm just going to have a quick check.
Yeah, you could see on the bottom there for a moment, Wagner 2 seconds quicker than Charlie Morgan on the previous lap as they come across the line. 8/10 quicker that past lap as well. So really closing up. Of course, Wagner has had a couple of mistakes, dropped back earlier on this race, had to fight their way through. And now they're up to P9, where they started this race. Charlie Morgan in P8 qualified 13th, so maybe not quite as quick as the Peugeot behind them. But we've seen how difficult it is to make overtakes at this shortened COTA circuit. How long will it take for Wagner to make a move? Of course, we've seen them also make a couple of mistakes when they were trying to make their way past cars, particularly locking the rear brakes into turn 15. A little bit wide for Charlie Morgan as Wagner just poked the nose to the inside, putting the pressure on, trying to edge Charlie Morgan into a mistake. Will we see a move to the inside for the Peugeot? They really close up on the brakes, but maybe in a little bit too deep, as Zach Silver now having more issues, is into the wall for the second time this race. It looks like they've been heavy into the wall, trying to get the car going again, which they will do so. We also have this battle between Nick Manders and Simon Harris starting to form. We can see Nick Manders was actually 2.2 seconds quicker than Simon Harris last lap, so this move might not be too difficult. So we'll stick on board with this battle towards T1 in the slipstream for Nick Manders. Are they close enough for a move this time round?
No, not by the looks of it. We'll try and go to the outside. Simon Harris runs a little bit deep into the corner, but not really at any detriment to them, as it does mean that Nick Manders does close up to the rear. But again, it's into this S's part of the circuit. The Cadillacs have seemed all right through here, but Porsche seeming to deal all right with those bumps on the inside of the corner. But the issue is, it's kind of a bit of deja vu at the moment. Instead of Zach Silver in the slower Cadillac running at the top of the queue, it's actually Simon Harris in a red Cadillac running at the top of the queue, and that has meant that we have kind of got this kind of little gaggle of cars going on. We've got one of the 499Ps. I'm not sure if that's Yaroshenko on a lap down or one of the other cars trying to lap, but then we've also got Nick Manders and Bruno Bertolfsson also trying to get past Simon Harris, and obviously they're fighting for position as well. So this could become a little bit of an interesting battle at the moment, and we can see a little bit of some cars piling up and trying to overtake each other as we come around the second to last corner now. And actually a little mistake from Harris, and that's made it rather easy for Nick Manders coming through and move up into 7th position. And actually, is it going to be an opportunity for Bruno Bertolfsson? Gets a tyre exit from the corner and will run down at the start finish straight, but one of the Peugeots now making their way past, potentially. I think that is Ben Shorley. It is Ben Shorley running on through. Currently has a 7-second lead on Jonathan Seville, but is having to deal probably with some of the first traffic he's had to look at in this race. So actually this battle isn't over either. Simon Harris still trying to find a way past Nick Manders, but he's going to have to surely give up in a second, because is currently holding up the race leader, which is good news for Jonathan Seville, but it hasn't really been able to take advantage of it yet. The gap comes down to within 7 seconds, but finally Simon Harris moves to the inside of the circuit to make way for the Peugeot that is trying to make its way past this battle, but has apparently looks like it's lost the Peugeot well, for briefly there, it looks like it lost 4 attempts to Jonathan Seville, so it hasn't really cost Ben Shawley ultimately too much.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're trying to lap cars around here. They're in their own battle. They're not going to want to really slow down and let you pass them at the first point you catch them. They're going to let you pass to the point that means they don't lose as much time, such as that little straight between up to turn 12, as we see far in background. I believe that's Yaroshenko going a little bit wide. But yeah, that's why, Simon Harris just, didn't want to pull off and slow down in the middle of the S's, where the cars are really on edge over those bumps. Wanted to wait for a slightly safer moment when they, they're not going wide through a corner, losing time offline. Just wanted to make it easier for themselves, and that just unfortunately meant Shawley just had to be a little bit patient, wait half a lap, and yeah, they did so, and they did get through. But I mean, Shawley, 7 seconds in the lead, is looking fairly comfortable. Jonathan Seville actually has the fastest lap of this race, is slightly quicker than Ben Shawley, but is maybe just pushed a little bit too hard on the tires, and is maybe that's why they're struggling a little bit more and coming under pressure from Basker. But you can see a lot of cars in this section of track, quite a few fighting for position, quite a few trying to lap these cars. As lockup for Batovson slides the car into turn 15, gathers it back up, and that could have been quite the moment.
I don't think they actually lost any time in the air there in the end there, because it would set them up for a lovely line through turn 15, and that, yeah, lovely save by Runa Batovson in the end, and is still right up behind Simon Harris, less than, well, just over 3 attempts separate the pair of them. Something I wanted to turn my attention to, obviously when Jonathan Seville and Basker join this battle, it is going to get interesting, because Basker has just struggled to find that extra little bit of pace to get right onto the rear of Seville. So we see a car locking up going into turn 1, and well, this little bit of traffic could really be beneficial to help Basker to try and get past Seville if Seville gets caught unlucky with some of the cars fighting, like what we see at the moment between Runa Batovson and Simon Harris. Hasn't been able to find a way past yet, as they make their way out of the S's into the mini S's now, and is still struggling to find a way through. But yeah, this could be really handy for Basker if Seville does get caught unlucky with trying to lap some of these cars ahead, because we have quite a few cars, as you already mentioned, on this part of the circuit, and it will really, I can't stress it enough, will be helpful to Basker when they are able to join this battle. It's but yeah, and it's actually, this battle does continue on with another car in it again now, as Manders did seem to open up a massive gap to Simon Harris, but now 3 attempts is all that separates the Cadillac and the Porsche again. So yeah, really just so many cars on this part of the circuit. It's really going to be important to try and maneuver your way through this traffic in order for Seville to stay in second position. It's going to be really tricky for him.
Yeah, it is. Luckily for him, might be a saving grace here. We're getting towards the halfway mark, which means it is nearly time for pit stops up towards T1. Using a bit of the curb in the braking zone. Runs a little bit wide here, does Seville. Maybe just slightly wider line going into the corner. Slightly tighter exit. Looks to have worked as they pull a bit of a gap with traction to the Toyota behind them as they jump over the curbs through the S's. The car sliding, bouncing on the bumps for good measure as well. Into the little shortcut, now into the left-hander, and it's really, that gap is really closing between Seville as they get caught up behind the first of Fries. We do believe that is Yaroshenko, who does now run wide through turn 13 and 14 to let these podium sitters get their way through. But now this is where the cars might be a little bit more reluctant. This 3-way fight between Nick Manders, Simon Harris and Runar Batovson, 10th, 11th and 12th. It may be much further down the grid, but doesn't mean that it's any less important to those drivers as it is fighting for the podium. But immediately over, is that into the pits for the Porsche? I think it is, yes. Runar Batovson first to blink, entering the pits with 55 minutes to go. they'll probably be able to get to the end, but which way will they go on tyres? This will be our first reference points, as down the inside goes Seville and Basker on Simon Harris. And that's actually dropped Simon Harris a little bit behind Nick Manders, who now has chance pressures off, trying to extend that gap to Simon Harris before they have to let the podium sitters through.
Yeah, and actually to stress as well, this is for the lead in the pro standings as it stands. As you've got to remember, Ben Shawnee running in the AM class. So as pro standings go, this is Seville leading the way, and Basker trying to take it away from him. And you never know how important these wins will be at the end of the season. Obviously, a 6-round championship, so you've got to make your wins count, and it may only be the first round, but I mean, it would be nice to lead with the championship lead. Just gives you that little bit of confidence heading into Lagos next week. And actually, this could be an opportunity potentially for Atal Basker. He's trying to look for a way past as they come up into the final sections of this circuit. Looks to the inside, a little bit of a lock up there from Jonathan Seville, runs wide. The Porsche still defending, not moving out of the way, does move out of the way in the end, but actually forces the Cadillac to the inside. That's going to give Atal a much better exit from the corner, drops them to within just under 2 tenths back from the Cadillac V Series R as they head up towards turn 1. This is for the lead in the pro class. Going to the inside is Atal Basker. Can't get the move done. Parking it on the apex of the corner is Jonathan Seville, trying to hold up the Toyota, which is going to try and find a way through, but in the end it looks like Jonathan Seville has just about done enough to hold off and keep the leader as he gets very sideways into the S's part of the circuit there, but is just about done enough to hold on to position, keep ahead of Atal Basker. And well, actually the big winner from all this is Ben Shawnee. That gap, remember, 6.5 seconds when they got to the traffic, now has come up to a 9-second gap for Ben Shawnee, so that has helped him marvellously.
Yeah, and as Nick Manders let them through, that also allowed Simon Harris and Tom Watson to close up, and now that three-way battle is, well, it's a three-way battle, it's technically a four-way battle, of course, with Ronald Butofsen having pitted, so 48.5 seconds stopped in the pits for Butofsen. Tyler Hammer only 45.7 seconds, so a little bit quicker there from the Cadillac driver that's been running a little further up, was up into 5th place before they pitted. Obviously, not sure if that, I think that is a just virtual energy and fuel, no tyres changed, I believe, but we'll maybe get a little more confirmation on that when we see other drivers pit. Big wobble there for Basker out of T1. But yeah, these drivers, they're gonna have to be making sure, right, what do? Do they change tyres? If so, do they change 2 tyres or all 4? Decisions to be made, of course, will have been influenced by what tyres they're on. And here's a little reminder of what the tyre situation is, who's running medium tyres, who has 1 or 2 hard compounds, likely on the front left for all those people that you see a hard and medium symbol for. And then, of course, Johnny Ashley, 4 hard tyres all around the car. Unlikely we'll see him pit. Maybe he's regretting that decision a little bit. Maybe he should have split the tyres between medium and hards like some of the other competitors. But we'll have to see what decisions get made as we make our way through this middle portion of the race, through the pit sequence.
These two still close again as they come onto the straight, less than 3 tenths separating them as they start onto the start-finish straight again. Now in the slipstream is Atal Basker, but again it's just still not close enough to try and get a move done here as they head into turn 1 onto the brakes. Now they turn into the left-hander now, very blind left-hander as you head up that hill. But again, it's not really close enough for Atal Basker, but is still, well, much like Alfie Bevan earlier, is applying a lot of pressure to the rear end of Jonathan Seville as it currently stands. The gap nearly 10 seconds between Ben Shawnee and himself now, as again under braking into this part of the circuit, it looks like Basker a little bit stronger, closes up that gap again as they will jump onto the brakes now. Look, a little bit of a think to dart to the left hand side there, but obviously decided against it. It was only a split second impulsive decision there by Atal Basker as they run up towards turns 14 and 15, this really tight and technical part of the circuit. It takes a much wider line, does Basgard, in order to try and take a little bit more of the inside of the corner to try and open up a gap to find a way through past Jonathan Seville, but isn't working out, and actually gets a much better run than Jonathan did into these fast right-handers, as they will come into the left-hand part of the circuit now, will fly through here, and then we'll have to jump on the brakes now as they go into the final corner. But again, it doesn't seem like the Toyota is close enough as they come on to the start-finish straight. It's just about there. It's literally, if anything, a car's width away from the back of the Cadillac V Series R, but as they come down the start finish straight, the Toyota is going to think about going to the inside, but is going to decide against going to the inside because still just isn't close enough to get past Seville. And as we now, with 49 minutes to go in this race, as you've already mentioned, we are into the pit cycle, and you've got to question, is it worth Atel Bascar, if he thinks he has the pace, is it worth coming in, or is it worth waiting for the Cadillac to come in and then try and pump in some lap times with some free air in front? We'll have to wait and see as they approach traffic yet again.
Yeah, of course, with how low the fuel and energy consumption is around here, there is actually a bit of breathing room compared to some of the other tracks we'll go to this season. You know, you can make your pit stop a little bit earlier, as we've seen, so people pitting as early as the 55-minute mark. That means these drivers could probably run as long as the 45-minute mark before they make their pit stop. So it does give a bit of element. Do you try and undercut the driver in front of you? The downside to that is, when you make your pit stop, you put a load of new fuel in, you're heavier when you come onto your laps that are crucial. The other driver, they're still on low fuel, so they can maybe run a little bit quicker. Of course, that then flip-flops a little bit more if you decide to change tyres. You're going to have cold tyres when you come out of the pits. If you do change any, that's going to make it a little bit difficult to go quickly. But then when they do come into temperature, you're going to have a bit more grip. If the other drivers change tyres, you know, they're going to have a cool tyre sequence, and that might let you fight back through. But then if they don't change tyres, of course, you're going to have that tyre advantage, but a gap to close in. We'll have to see how these tyre battles go. We've had more people through pit lane. Tom Watson has gone through pit lane, was a little shorter on the pit stop by about a second than Ronar Bartolfsson, but was not enough for them to get in front. They're now about 4 seconds behind Bartolfsson, who is the driver that has gone for that undercut on the Nick Manders, Simon Harris and Tom Watson battle. Has gone in front of Tom Watson. Will they get in front of Nick Manders and Simon Harris as well? We'll have to wait until they pit to find out, but we'll stick with this battle here. In fact, we'll actually go to Johnny Ashley, who has made a mistake coming out of the final corner. Let's get a replay of it.
Yeah, and it looks like, well, whatever's happened, he's got very close to the pit wall, may have even touched it, so turns the car in, a little bit of a lockage, maybe on the left rear, which is obviously unsettled the car, and, well, Johnny knew he was going around, and, oh, Johnny, he's made contact with the wall, the Rolex advertising wall on the start-finish straight. Luckily, only a minor amount by the looks of it, and, well, he doesn't seem to be struggling too much after that, but, yeah, just a little bit of a lock at the rear and sent the car around.
Yeah, he does carry on. We'll have a little bit of front end damage from that. And actually, as we were looking at that replay, it's a swap of position for P2. Let's see if we're able to catch what happened in a replay and how those positions swapped.
Yeah, so as you can see, it is Jonathan running ahead as they come across the S's, bump, 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 locks the rears up again, and as they come towards the left-hander here, we'll jump onto the brakes. So it doesn't seem to be any sort of mistake here as of yet, as they now head up towards turn 16, turns 12 and 13, and hasn't really been a mistake yet from Jonathan Seville into 14 and 15. Now runs the car to the inside, right all over the rear still. Is the Toyota of Bascar, who's well, we've seen it's been very strong around this fast right-hander. This is where he closes up on him, and it all actually goes into the floor and falls into the earth.
Yeah, I think we lost the replay there, unfortunately. Let's try and have another little go if we can get the replay back, and
There we go.
here they are side by side. So maybe a mistake through the final corner from Seville. A little lock-up from Seville going into T1 as Basker's on the inside, runs in deep, and the Toyota is finally through for P2, fighting all stint long. But can maybe Seville pull something clever with the pit strategy to get themselves back in front there? It's going to have to be quite clever, as they've already dropped back by about 1.2 seconds. We're seeing more pit stops, including Simon Harris, remember, was in that battle with Tom Watson and Butolfson. Butolfson has opened up a bit of a gap. Tom Watson's actually closed in. He's only now about 2 seconds on Butolfson, has closed in a bit recently. So maybe there is tyre changes going on in those battles, as Simon Harris now exiting the pit lane, stopped for 42.4 seconds. That is about 5 seconds shorter than Watson and Butolfson, and that is the difference between taking 2 tyres and not changing any tyres. So as we see Simon Harris out of the pits, let's see where Butolfson is. Butolfson's already around T1. Simon Harris is going to run wide into T1, misjudging the braking zone coming out of pit lane, and Tom Watson also in front, already going into the S's, so it seems like that undercut has worked out. Simon Harris struggling a little bit despite the shorter pit stop.
Yeah, so yeah, obviously short pit stop hasn't, well, as it currently stands, hasn't worked out for Simon Harris with both the cars he was running with on circuit, running, well, quite a few corners ahead, as we currently see. 7 seconds is what currently separates Watson and Harris, and that gap seems to be stabilising about 7.3 seconds is what separates them after that pit window. So as you say, that earlier pit stop has worked out for Watson and Butolfson, and has well, closed up their battle to only 2 of them now fighting for 11th position. And actually it's going to be a bit hard to catch up with Tyler Hammer after that. Anyway, Bruna is, well, actually, to run on board with Tom Watson now. You can see how close they are as we come out of the final corner onto the start-finish straight now, as we come back into the pit lane. Oh, there's a little bit of a mistake. It's for it's for poor Zach Silver again. It seems to has lost that Cadillac V Series R over the curbs again, and currently is running 2 laps down in 17th position, as we come back to the battle between Tom Watson and Runa Butolfson, and it looks like it's about to ignite, Scotty.
Yes, so it seems like Tom Watson closing in now, again comfortable with their tyres once again, is starting to put the pressure on. We're seeing a lot of the front runners making their pit stops. We'll catch up with them and run through what they've done, what times they've been in pit lane, because I've actually seen something very interesting pop up. It might have been a mistake, it might not have been. We'll see in a moment as we wait for the final pit stops to shake through. Charlie Morgan, Nick Manders are the only 2 drivers yet to enter pit lane. Athel Basker and Jonathan Seville currently in the pits from leading 2 positions. Of course, Charlie was in front of them and will get back in front for the lead. And now exiting pit lane. Let's see Seville on the pit exit. Athel Basker, 3 T1 spins coming out T1 on the pit exit.
Yeah, I don't know if he was helped around by, I think it was a Peugeot running behind Atal Baskar, but now he's having to do a bit of an, oh god, it's like watching Austin Powers. He's trying to turn the car around, but reverse start. So that is losing him a heap of time. Oh no, it's actually, I think that's Jacob Hine in the, when he's collected him, he's just collected the right-hand rear of the Toyota as Jacob Hine there on the exit of turn 1. Just wrong place, wrong time for the pair of them. Obviously the Toyota a lot slower on pit exit, and the Alpine has just clattered the Toyota in the rear, and has ultimately cost Atal Baskar not only 2nd position, but the lead in the pro standings, and has well, really done Jonathan Seville a bit of a favour, and could have handed victory in the pro class to Jonathan Seville, because we have seen how hard it has been for Atal Baskar to stay on the rear of Seville. It just is the pace difference between the pair of them. So yeah, gutting for poor Atal Baskar.
Yeah, just unfortunately, it just seems like the smallest little bit of overlap between the 2 of them as they just sort of converged on the racing line. Unfortunately, Athol Basker getting spun. Incredibly unfortunate. Might end up as a striding report after the race, and could see a post-race penalty if the stewards deem that Jacob Hine was at fault for anything there. But we just seen in the background there Charlie Morgan entering the pits 1 hour into this race. Got to the 1 hour mark, and now will be going for a different strength for a shorter pit stops there, as we see Johnny Ashley having a mistake here at the later round of the lap. I also just noticed something else very interesting. Let's get a replay here of what's happened with Johnny Ashley.
Yeah, so it's on the exit of turn 10, and it's already happened. He's just lost it over the curbing, and it actually hasn't hit the wall. But it's, again, Johnny's just tried to turn the car around by the looks of it, and actually he hasn't gone into the wall. He's just carried on. I thought there was front end damage. It does look like there's front. And actually, no, I think it's just dirt.
I think that's damage from when he spun and hit the pit wall.
Oh, yes, you would be right, yes. That is a good point.
I will tell you what Johnny is struggling with. We'll bring this little menu up. Remember, Johnny, only car to utilise 4 hard tyres around the entirety of the car. Hang on a sec, he's got a couple of medium tyres on. You may have noticed medium front tyres. I have a feeling Johnny has changed both of his front tyres to a medium compound and not changed the rears. Okay, at first the mediums were cooled, but when the mediums have been brought up to temperature, they're new. They're a lot grippier than the hard tyres on the rear that are old, and are old at this point. And that grip imbalance has just made the car really, really unstable, and has thrown Johnny Ashley into that mistake that we saw there at the shortcut.
Yeah, no, I think you're bang on the money with that. And so obviously Johnny's coming to pit lane. We see him make his way out of his pit box now. And we're either going, because obviously I think qualified inside the top 5 for this race. And now, as it currently stands, down in 13th position. Jacob Hine, it says 0 seconds as well. So I assume Jacob is going to could potentially jump out ahead of Johnny as well. So it could see Johnny fall a bit further down the order. No, that's not going to help either. It locks the car coming up, locks the car straight away coming out of the pit lane. Looked like it was some rear locking, and it's actually has stayed in 13th position ahead of Hine, but it's still much further down the order from where he would have wanted to be.
And you can see now he's got medium tyres on the rear. So he's changed the rear tyres, and now he's struggling because the rear tyres are cold and still not giving him any grip, and that's what caused the moment into T1. We have a battle here over P9 here, but Tolfson and Nick Manders are fighting. Tom Watson has also got involved, got themselves in front of but Tolfson. But yeah, battle kicking off here as they head up to T1 now. Nick Manders in P9, Tom Watson P10, Ron Butolfson P11. Let's actually get a replay to see how this battle started.
I was going to point out as well, this is actually the battle for 3rd position in the amateur standings. So Rune Butolfson trying to go up the inside there into, I think that's turn 9 now. So they come up towards turn 10, turn 11, turn 12 now. Rune Butolfson locks up all 4 wheels and slips up the inside to get the move done on Nick Manders, and it now means that Tom Watson is right up behind, but it's I think the replay is about to end. Back down the inside goes Nick Manders, and now Tom Watson will try and look back at the inside, but actually that kind of momentum of that outside line continues on, and Butolfson gets moved done, but obviously tight line, can't get the car turned into the corner, and ends up losing both of the positions. So this is, I think as it stands, it's currently a 3-way fight for the for 3rd position in the amateur class. Rune obviously has fallen off the back of this battle quite a bit after briefly going up into 3rd in class, so it's now down to Tom Watson to try and take the 3rd place in the amateur standings and 9th position overall as we come on to the start-finish straight. But I don't think there'll be a move yet, because obviously run a little bit wide there and has obviously cost Tom Watson a little bit of speed coming onto the straight. Currently now the gap is 6.8 tenths there. Is a little bit of a lock up there as well is going to help the Toyota get back into this battle.
Yeah, Nick Manders now starting to pull a little bit clear. One thing I've noticed as we're, of course, through the end of the pit cycle, everyone has made their pit stop through this race. Unfortunately, we haven't got the pit time in for Nick Manders. We must have gone to a replay. I think it was the last car to pit. So we didn't get that information, unfortunately. But one thing that has caught my eye is Alfie Bevan, as we have a yellow flag. That's for either Zach Silver or Alex Parkin, I believe. Towards back in the field, they've had a real struggle so far this race. But Alfie Bevan's pit stop came in at 32 seconds. Shortest pit stop of everyone I've seen that has made one normal pit stop. And you know, everyone else is in the 40s. So I think Alfie is the only driver to not have changed any tyres. Everyone else has changed either 2 tyres or all 4 tyres. So we'll have to see how this goes. Of course, Alfie, he's gained in the short term. He's closed up the gap to Basker and Seville, but has lost out in, will lose out in the long term a bit. Will struggle to sort of keep up with them on those older tyres, but does find himself a little bit of no man's land really at the moment. Still 18 seconds behind those cars in front. Remember, it was 26 seconds are there when he eventually got the move done on Blomqvist, and has opened up a 21-second gap to Tyler Hammer behind. So it'll be all about if Tyler Hammer on their fresher tyres, who I think has changed all 4 tyres, at a rough estimate, looking at the pit times, they were stopped for 45 seconds compared to the 32 for Alfie. Close in 21 seconds, that'll be a lot. That'll be like a second a lap needed for Tyler Hammer to catch Bevan, let alone to make an overtake, which we've seen has been ever so difficult. Also got a couple of subscriptions. Thank you very much, Jacko B. Jack, 4K for subscribing, as well as Bloodwolf NL for subscribing for the 22nd month in a row. Your support is greatly appreciated here at oNiD. It's great to have you as part of the community and great to have your support.
Yeah, and you're currently watching the oNiD Sim Hound LMU 100 series powered by Coach Dave, as we are currently following the battle for second position in the amateur, third position, I beg my own pardon, in the amateur standings, as Tom Watson is now, well, actually the gap going up a bit. 8 tenths separates Nick Manders and Tom Watson as it currently stands. We haven't mentioned yet, nice to have the custom liveries on Sunday, on the Sunday seasons this series, as we've got some oNiD racing schemes running in this one. As you can see, currently Tom Watson running in that red and black kind of oNiD livery, which is looking very nice on that car with some of our sponsors like Sim Hound and some other various things. We've got 1.2 second gap currently between these two, so going up slightly between Nick Manders and Tom Watson as they come into the twisty turns 14 and 15. Runs a little bit wide around there, does Tom Watson as well. So Manders doing a good job of actually opening up this gap and trying to secure third place in the AM class and 9th position overall in this race. This, by the looks of it, is the closest battle on circuit as well at the moment, as they're only battle within a second of one another, as things currently stand with 31 minutes and 15 seconds now to go in this race.
Yeah, still quite a way to go on this stint. And if the drivers haven't changed tyres, this is when it's going to be starting to get a little bit difficult, as the tyre wear creeps and further creeps in, especially if they haven't changed any tyres. You know, the tyre wear delta between, like, let's say the front left and the rear right is going to be getting bigger and bigger, and that's going to make the car a little more unbalanced. You know, whether the car's probably going more towards understeer here, with the front tyres having to work so hard through the S's with lockups into some of the slow speed corners here. You have to imagine the understeer will be getting quite big, and you know, that might make some drivers more comfortable. Maybe they started with a bit of a twitchier setup in the car, sort of rear end a little bit loose, but as the front tyres have worn, the car has come to them and it's a little more comfortable, more stable, and they're able to push a little bit more lap time out of the car. Conversely, if anyone's been struggling with the rear end from the start of this race, it's only going to have got more difficult, and those drivers are probably the ones we've seen changing their tyres throughout the stint, just to make sure they don't get into a situation where it's just unbearable for them. They make a mistake, as we've seen a few drivers do so throughout the race, and end up losing positions. Half an hour left to go in this race. Not too long, all things considered, especially with some of the gaps we have and how long we've seen, how difficult it was to make some overtakes. But yeah, interesting to see. Will we see any late moves from drivers that have been that have maybe find themselves out of position, trying to close up and make up any final positions?
Yeah, we'll have to see with the remaining 29 minutes and 18 seconds now to go in this race. This battle still extending out, obviously, as, Amanda's seeming to get into their stride as it currently stands. And Patolson really has fallen right back off of this battle. 5 seconds now away from Tom Watson in 11th position. So what once was a freeway fight for third has really kind of died down just a little bit as Charlie Morgan within 2 seconds of Marquez in 7th position, and Morgan currently running second in the amateur class. At the front of the field, it's all steaming pretty similar. Still 23 seconds separates Bascar and Bevan, and Bascar now really hasn't got any closer to Seville, and it's going to be a tall order. 28 minutes to go and a 16-second gap to try and close up, and it's going to be really hard for Atal Bascar to try and do something about that. Shorty still leads by just over 9 seconds. Something to mention as well, though, Ben Shorty has had a few unlucky moments. I think if we cast our minds back to Sebring last season, was in a dominant lead there and just had a little bit of mistake by themselves and wrote the car off and DNF'd themselves from the race. So potentially could be a mistake in store based off of previous performances. So that is something to keep an eye on with the remainder of this race. But so far has been a very mature drive. Hasn't really had too many races with us this at oNiD. I think has actually only had 35 starts on SimGrid as a whole, but has 17 top 5s from those 35 starts. So is a very quick driver indeed is Ben Shorley, and to go with that 11 victories as well. So it really at this point is about bringing that car home.
Yeah, but as you were mentioning mistakes for Shawley last season, we were talking, about them being in the AMS classes. We've had a little change of position. Wagner here has lost out to Charlie Morgan. Well, I think maybe a mistake. So we'll try and get a replay here of what has potentially happened with Wagner. You can see Wagner in front in the Peugeot. Charlie Morgan in the Porsche just behind, coming through the final corner. Looks like, Charlie Morgan closing up here in the slipstream, heading towards T1. Pulls out to the inside. This is going to be a simple move. It will be indeed. Charlie was 1.5 seconds quicker than Wagner on the previous lap, and that allowed them to make that simple move. That's probably the simplest move we've seen all race long.
Yeah, looked pretty easy, and has opened up that gap. 5 tenths still between the pair of them. And I don't know if this is a stupid question, but what was Wagner's pit stop strategy? Because it just seemed like they were quite far down the order, but have found themselves all the way up into 8th position. So it has really been a remarkable comeback drive from Wagner so far, even though they have now lost out to Charlie Morgan. So is it did they kind of, has their strategy been split to anyone else, or has it just been the raw pace they've had so far in this race?
So the pit stop time for Wagner was 38.2 seconds. Charlie Morgan that they're fine with was 37.3. Now, if we assume Alfie Bevins are saying a benchmark of 32 seconds is our no tire change time, then I think it's safe to assume these drivers extra 5 seconds, that equates to 2 tire change. 2 tires changed around the car. Might have been 2 front tires, might have been 2 left-hand side tires. We don't know, unfortunately. But that's what it suggests, especially when compared to a lot of the other times being in the mid-40s, from about 46 to 42. sort of suggesting that would be a 4-tyre change pit stop. So yeah, these 2 tyres changing just 2 tyres, and seems like it's benefiting Charlie Morgan more at this point, who is starting to pull away a little bit. Gap up to a second. We'll again update on the difference in their lap times when they come across the line, with 24.5 minutes remaining. There is the line, so let's see was lap times. Wagner 4/10 slower last lap, so yes, does seem Charlie Morgan, despite being out-qualified by Wagner, reminder, Wagner qualified P9, Charlie Morgan 13th, up 6 positions this race, so it's been a good showing this race from Charlie Morgan. Charlie with the pace advantage at the moment. Earl in chat asking to see a bit of the boss man, Johnny Ashley. Fortunately, Johnny was a good qualifying, qualified up in P5, very respectable, but has had a bit of a disaster this race, couple of mistakes, and has found himself down in 13th now.
Yeah, poor Johnny. He has, it's just not really gone his way today. But I mean, something to take for the rest of the season, for the remaining 5 rounds after this one, is that he does have the pace to take it to some of the faster runners in this series. So that can give him some confidence, maybe to fight for some podiums, depending on the circuits he attends for the rest of the season. So, obviously a big negative to take away from this one, but can take some positives as well. So obviously he does continue on, but I mean, pretty tall ask to catch the 32-second gap to Jacob Hine with about 23 minutes and 15 seconds now to go in this race. And we're kind of, it's quite part of the race right now, as the closest cars on circuit is still Marquez and Morgan, but the gap 1.5 seconds between them. So actually, for the first time in a while, this is probably the widest gaps we've seen in a Sunday series. And it's just kind of everyone's in their own groove at the moment, and it's kind of all stabilized out.
Yeah, we do get to this part of the races sometimes where things just spread out, everyone's sort of running their own strategy, their own pace, but of course could still see some mistakes. 22.5 minutes to go, we've seen a few this race already. Zach Silver, Alex Parkin making a couple, Jacob Hine I think made one, as well as Johnny Ashley making a couple that we're following now, so we could still see mistakes from drivers in front, especially those who've only changed none of their tyres, or maybe just 2. They're pushing quite a long way, and okay, we've seen plenty of races last season where drivers didn't change tyres at all. This track very demanding, full of corners, there's barely a moment that you're not going through a corner. The tyres are going to be crying out. I mean, I would say we've seen more tyre changes in this race than we've seen in any race last season, barring the wet races. So, it shows you just how high tyre wear this circuit is, and how demanding it has been, pushing drivers to opt for that tyre change. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how well those that didn't change tyres is lasting on. And of course, one of those drivers that didn't change tyres, Alfie Bevan, just coming across the line. Their last lap time was a 1:23.0. Our leaders, by the way, Ben Shawley did a 1:21.1, so 1.9 seconds quicker. 21.8 for Jonathan Savelle. So that's still 1.2 seconds quicker. You see, Alfie just struggling for pace a little bit more. Tyler Hammer, of course, the driver behind, is closing in. That gap was about 22 seconds earlier. It's now down to 18 seconds, but having only closed in about 3/10. It's not looking good enough for Tyler Hammer to close in for P4. With only 20 minutes remaining, it's going to be just not enough of a pace difference, but was going to be quite a tall order to gain so much time in with the limited race time remaining. And the closer battles that we did have, Wagner was passed by Charlie Morgan, still dropping back, so they are, let's get a little update, last lap 1.2 seconds slower, so yeah, really struggling there. Maybe, actually, I'm just thinking with the time difference between the two of them, I wonder if Wagner, maybe instead of changing tyres, took on extra fuel and energy since we've seen how long some drivers were able to go. Does mean that sometimes, as we see a car rejoining, I believe that's Alex Parkin rejoining there. But as I was saying with Wagner, maybe he just not doing the fuel calculations, not realizing, oh yeah, you can maybe get away with only filling up to about 80% fuel and energy at the stint, and just filling up to 100 and losing the time and not getting the benefit of any new tires like what Charlie Morgan is doing now with a 5-second gap in front of them.
I mean, it's really opened up that gap, and the Wagner, the pace that Wagner had as well, I think it was 2 seconds ahead of Morgan at one point. So it does scream that he hasn't actually gone 4 tires, and yeah, the kind of the pace drop off does signal that way of things. There's yes, still Watson kind of closes that gap to Manders. I mean, is still about 1.5 seconds between the pair of them. So I think that's slightly come down from what it was, but kind of yo-yoing. The Solstom still really, I must have gone for a different strategy from them both on pit stops, because now 9 seconds back from Watson. I think last time we looked, it was about a 5-second gap. So the Tolson really out of the podium battle in the amateur class that is happening between, well, it's kind of happening between Watson and Manders at the moment. As you see, Rune Patolson just running ahead of Jacob Hein. This move obviously not for position, as well, obviously Hein still running down in 14th position behind Johnny Ashley. Only have one driver out so far, and that was the disqualification for Zach Finney. We theorised maybe for track limits, but really came out of nowhere while they looked like they were trying to get onto the back of the battle for 4th position overall in this race between Blomqvist and Bevan at the time. As yeah, really at the moment we're just kind of waiting for some gaps to come down. Watson really keeping Manders a little bit modest now, though. That gap now 1.1 seconds, and actually Manders going really slowly around here, and this could be an opportunity for Tom Watson to potentially steal away 3rd position. I wonder what's going on with Nick Manders. Really has dropped off a cliff pace-wise in the past couple of minutes now. Well, as you know, we came to this battle, I said, 1.5 seconds. Now 0.6 is the battle for the final position on the amateur podium. And yeah, Manders really dropping off. Scotty, I don't know why this is. Any theories?
It could be a difference in pit strategy. As I said, unfortunately, we don't have the time for Nick Manders' pit stops, so we don't know what way he's going on strategy. Tom Watson, 47.2 seconds. We believe that is changing all 4 tyres, so there is a potential. Nick Manders didn't change all of their tyres and is now struggling with the tyre wear, and that's what's letting Tom Watson close in now. It would kind of make sense because Manders sort of pulled out a little bit at the start of the stint because they only had 2 cold tyres. They still had 2 warm tyres to help them get around the corners, put a bit of power down, slow down for corners, whereas Watson was having on all 4 cold tyres, really struggling with that. You just struggle that much more. But now the tyre wear is coming into his favour, and he is starting to put the pressure on, starting to close in. Last lap, Nick Manders invalidated their lap, so unfortunately we don't get to know what lap time they did. We'll see what they did down here, but Tom Watson, big slide out of the final corner, struggling for traction, and will lose a bit of time again. Another invalid lap from Nick Manders in front, but they did open the gap thanks to that mistake from Tom Watson. So Tom really pushing here. It seems like Nick Manders just a little bit quicker, but either being held back by tyre wear is sort of allowing Tom Watson to have a chance here, but mistakes like that are just gonna help Manders hold on.
Yeah, and it really has. 2.6 seconds is the gap between them. So it's really cost him about 2 seconds from that one little sideways moment, because obviously he lost that time on the exit of the corner and then lost it all the way up the start-finish straight. So poor Tom Watson. just a little bit of a mistake, and has made it so he has to do all of that work again. But really did seem to have a pace advantage at one stage over Nick Manders, so it could easily close that gap down again. It's back to within 2 seconds, but we're just gonna have to twiddle our thumbs just a little bit, and wait for Tom Watson to get right back onto the rear of Nick Manders, and that's going to help Nick Manders. Bigger lock up there by the looks of it. He's rejoined the circuit, and actually that is a mistake for a mistake. Nick Manders, big lock up, and has decided to bring the car straight into the pit lane.
I just said Nick Manders had 2 invalid laps in a row. I think I know what I'm expecting here. I'm not sure if you're expecting it too, but I don't think we're going to see Nick Manders turn left towards the pit garages, which they're not. They are taking a drive-through for track limits, and yes, it has popped up. 1 penalty on my timing screen for Nick Manders, a drive-through, and that has given Tom Watson P9, and that's allowed Runner Butolfsson up into the top 10. And let's see, is Simon Harris close enough? Simon coming up to T1 now. No, not close enough by 6.5 seconds there. But Nick Manders, mistakes with track limits, just pushing them a little too hard, trying to hold on to that position on worn tyres. And it has cost them a couple of positions.
And it has cost them positions in terms of the AM standings as well, because was sitting in 3rd position, as I've mentioned many times so far, in the amateur class. This now drops them to 5th position in the amateur class, moving Butolfsson up to 4th and Watson into 3rd in those classifications as well. So it actually has dropped Nick Manders off of the podium. And, well, yeah, Tom Watson, it wasn't much pressure, but it was enough to force Nick Manders into making too many mistakes, and ultimately he has now been punished with 13 minutes to go in this race as well. I'm sure this is Nick Manders' podium chances in the M class truly squandered.
Yeah, Nick Manders has been known for a few mistakes. We've seen it last season. Qatar was running in a decent position, made a couple of mistakes and lost a couple of positions. I think at Imola too struggled a bit, and Midby could have been a little further up. So yeah, you know, he does have the nickname in our Discord server, Nick Bottlejob Manders, and yeah, this seems to be another race where he has bottled some potential positions away.
Yeah, I also just want to say thank you for the follow, Titisp3. Thank you for following the stream. You're currently watching the oNiD Sim Hound LMU 100 series powered by Coach Dave Academy. This is round 1 at Circuit of the Americas as we start our 6-week season here on Sundays. Next round at Interlagos. Next Sunday, stream probably starting at around 7:45 in the evening. As yeah, well, that is UK time. As we now follow Nick still, currently 9 seconds back from Runner Butolfsson, who himself is now 11 seconds back from Tom Watson. So Watson in a good position to wrap up a podium here for himself, and actually that is a decent result for themselves, as Ben Shorley still leads the way in this race. Gap actually has, it's gone up now I think about it, between him and Seville. Was around 9 seconds to the 10-second mark, has pipped into the 11-second point, and actually as well is leading the AM class as well is Ben Shorley. And well, yeah, really hasn't done well so far with 11 minutes and 19 seconds to go. Hasn't really put us foot wrong in this race. And well, to have someone like Jonathan Seville, we know his pace as a regular here at oNiD. Have him behind you and to just soak up that pressure and drive your race. Ben Shorley has done a fantastic job in the Peugeot, and it's great to have him from round 1 this season. Really means that he can can try and go for a championship charge this season. And well, what a way to start it, with potentially a win in the AM and the overall standings. And well, yeah, really has no one on the circuit to really worry about, except that car is going to lap in just a few moments.
Yeah, there is no overall championship for this series, which I think is a little bit of a disappointment. But yeah, no overall championship. We might see Ben Shorley. I personally hope we see Ben Shorley promoted to the pro class. Should mention this was based on SimGrid ranking, but eventually. As we seen last season, he was kind of a winner bin it driver. I think he won 2 races, but he also crashed out of 2 races, and that's just held his rank back on SimGrid within the rookie class, which is why we see him in the AM class here. But maybe the admins will think, actually, hang on, since this is something we need to take into consideration and bump him up. We'll see if that happens or not with 10 minutes remaining in this race. But I also just want to mention, we only had 18 cars on the grid for this race, but we have plenty more. We have 9 other drivers signed up. Of course, we have Matt Townsend that we've seen on the timing chart, was feeling ill and so couldn't make the race, couldn't quite withdraw in time. But we also have 8 other drivers in the grid, one of which springs to mind is Alex Shahabi. Was quite strong last season, maybe not necessarily fighting for wins, but was quite well sort of in the mid-pack, or sort of top end of mid-pack in the hypercar class last time, as I've just seen pop up in the top left a penalty for Jacob Hine, who is going to be taking a drive-through penalty.
So, I mean, Jacob been in a bit of the wars himself so far in this race. It is probably, I don't know how much, I'm going to say it isn't going to draw behind Yaroshenko if he comes into the pit lane, because there's about a 50-second gap between them. Obviously, is on a limiter, but I doubt would lose that much time by just going through the pit lane. I feel free to be corrected here, but I think, well, where Dmitry Yaroshenko is on circuit, it just seems a little bit too far back, especially if he does that. And a little half spin there, just about gathers the car back up, didn't lose too much time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to be, Hines should be able to get out nice and safely ahead of the Ferrari.
Yep, and here is Jacob on the pit exit. Yeah, as you rightly say, 50 seconds. Not long enough that they'll spend in pit lane. Time to drive through the pit lane, by the way, 25 seconds if you are wondering. I think Johnny Ashley might have also had a drive-through penalty at one point, down in 13th place. He's also showing have driven through the pit lane but not stopped in his box. But we didn't catch that. If you do see the penalty graphic, which by the way does come up in the top left, sort of at the right-hand side of that blue bar that slowly diminishes as we go on throughout the race, it's very missable. Yeah, you wonder why they made it so missable, but yeah, that's just something that can be easily missed. But when you catch it, you're like, oh yeah, spotted it, and it's a bit of a good feeling. You realise what's going on. Yeah, Jacob Hine, latest of our drivers to fall foul of track limits. Still 7 minutes to go, still quite a few laps to go. Could see another couple of drivers. Of course, we came over from ACC earlier on in season. COTA was one of the tracks that was very harsh on track limits. It's not quite as harsh here on the Mon Ultimate, but still pretty easy to find yourself just on wrong side of the white line of the curbs a little too often, and yeah, drive-through penalty to drop you back.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those circuits that kind of teases you into doing it. A lot of tarmac runoff area. So you are like, oh, should I? Oh, I might as well. But obviously, yes, it does eventually add up and lead to a penalty. But look, a great example now. Look, just tarmac beyond the eye can see. So it's Jacob Hine still running in 14th position as, well, kind of got in a bit of a stable part of the race again. Now, closest cars on track are, I think it's Tom Watson to Marquez. Currently, just over 5 seconds separates them, so we'll have to keep an eye on that, but that will be a pretty hard gap to close down with now 6 minutes to go from round 1 here at Circuits of the Americas. As we come to Nick Manders, currently is 5 seconds back from Rune Bertolfsen, so obviously has got the pace on Bertolfsen. And well, how much quicker a lap can you say he's going, Scotty?
It says there on the screen, minus 1.7 seconds. Let's go on board with Nick Manders, shall we, to see if he is able to have a late charge on this race. to try and chase down runner Bentofsson. Also has a Cadillac right behind them. Trying to see which one that is. I think that is Johnny Seville. Right behind him in second place, so Johnny will obviously be wanting to get past, but Nick Manders won't want to lose any time as they try and catch up to Bentofsson, who of course they were fighting earlier on in this race, but that drive-through penalty dropped them back behind. As one's like Glock 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 7, 9, 6, 8. That was very tricky. Try and catch us out there. Thank you very much for following the dying stages of this race. I was starting to talk about drivers that weren't able to attend this race, had to withdraw for whatever various reason. A couple of AM drivers, Oliver Knowles and Dave Selecki, not making tonight. But 6 pro drivers. Already mentioned Alex Shahabi from last season. We also got Stefan Reinhardt, Peter Jelinek, Martin Thorpe, Matthias Fuskin, and Dennis Cometto. All good drivers, you know. Add them onto the grid, and you know, while today seems a little quite tame, they're going to get involved in battles. They're going to close things up, and we're going to see some great battles in this season come when we get to some other tracks that are a little more open. Fuel strategy comes into play in the season. It's going to be a good season.
Yeah, indeed so, and the names you've just listed as well, most of them oNiD regular drivers as well, so you can trust them to show up consistently for races. This probably very likely will be some of the drivers will only miss this round this season, so it does look like we'll have a nice bolstered grid with a good field of hypercars, and yeah, it will just yeah, as you say, will make the racing absolutely excellent, and well, gives us something really to look forward to. As we still ride on board with Nick Manders, and actually now we come to Tom Watson and Wagner Marquez. Currently is the gap still just under 4 seconds between them, but it has come down quite a bit for Tom Watson. Both in different classes though. Tom Watson currently, as we've mentioned, third in the AMS class, whereas Wagner currently sits 8th overall and is a pro driver. So the gap is still coming down, but actually, staying kind of hovering around the 4 second mark between the pair of them, and we'll have to see if Watson, well, it has to be the gaps would have to come down rather quickly, because it is 2 minutes now and 35 seconds to go in this race.
Yeah, we are running into the later laps. We will probably see 2 more laps for these drivers as time gets closer to running out, or actually maybe perhaps 3 more laps for these drivers. They're not they've been lapped once, not a second time. The leader isn't actually too far behind them, maybe 8 or so seconds, as Tom Watson, I think, looking at some menus, getting a little bit distracted as they headed towards the pit wall there. That was a little bit nerve-wracking as they try and chase down Wagner in front. Half a second quicker last lap around, so they are closing in that gap, but is likely going to be a little too late as we get towards the end of this race. Tom, we've had quite a few moments throughout this race. Is there any one driver that you would pick out from this race to say that, driver of the race or moment of the race?
I don't know. Driver of the race, I'd have to say. Actually, I'll go with this. Driver of the race, I would say, is Ben Shawley. Has just really been at the front of the field, and this is not an easy group of drivers to just go out and beat by 12 seconds. Jonathan Seville, usually when we won ACC, obviously maybe a new simulator to him, I'm not too sure, but on ACC would dominate the series. Oh, big off though there for Rune Bertolson. That's not Rune Bertolson, sorry, Nick Manders. I've got my Porsche drivers mixed up, but yeah, it does mean he stayed ahead though of Harris, but has actually meant that obviously that puts end to his charge to catch up Bertolson and secures Bertolson 4th position in the Amicus class, and should secure Manders 5th in the amateur standings, as we'll see what happened. And it's probably just a little bit of curbing catching him out again. You can see already unsettled at the rear as he went into left-handed, went to change direction, and obviously caused the car to rotate around. Does recover it quickly, but yeah, that puts the nail in the coffin of their charge. Back to my point though, I was going to say Ben Shorley, brilliant drive, has been fantastic, and has kept a really competitive field of drivers behind him, and pretty dominantly so, and has kept the car on the circuit, fingers crossed, touch wood, as he's now got 12 seconds to go in this race. Driver of the race, though, I'm going to send to Marquez in 8th position. Was really at the back of the field after an incident in lap 1, but has managed to find their way back into 8th position. So, and also is someone that hasn't raced on SimGrid too much, and well, is showing some real good pace here today in one of their, well, from what I understand, one of their first oNiD races. So yeah, a good performance from themselves.
Yeah, I think you mentioned well, seeing them fight their way through the mistake field. They had a couple of mistakes as they done so, but they did eventually get through and up to P8. One place better the more they qualified, helped out obviously by some of those that made mistakes. Can't help but mention as well as we come to the end, Charlie Morgan made up 6 places from where they qualified. Ron Arpitolson up 5 places. But at the front of the field, it'd be Ben Shawley that takes the first victory here of the 100 Series 2, dominating the way 12 seconds in the end in front of Jonathan Savelle, who was fighting over second place. Did fall behind Athol Basker, but Basker unfortunately coming together contact with Jacob Hine just after leaving the pits at T1. Saw them spin and drop back to 3rd place. They were quick enough though to hold on to the final podium position as they come through the final corners. Now they would have a dominant gap over the next car, which would be Alfie Bevan, first car to finish. I think Alfie is on the lead lap here, but Alfie, last car on the lead lap, stuck behind Elvin Blomqvist for pretty much the entirety of the first half of the race. Eventually got through, went for an alternative strategy. Only driver to not change any tyres, we believe, at their midpoint pit stop. Only driver to take the tyres they started on through the entire race. Struggling for pace towards the end, but they were quick enough to hold on to P4 after Blomqvist also made a mistake. They'll come across line and take P4, which, leaving cross line, they seem relatively happy about. It's good points on the board, especially in a round where we mentioned quite a few drivers missing this round, so it could be a good, helpful result for these drivers as they go into the season. Let's get the results up now as we head into the final, as the race has finished.
Yeah, so Ben Shorley wins this one in the Peugeot, followed by Jonathan Saville, who was about 9 seconds back down the road. Then Athol Basker rounds out the top 3, and Alfie Bevan's actually on the podium in the Pro class in 4th. In 5th position finishes Tyler Hammer, the fastest actually of the oNiD cars in the session. Then in 6th, it's Elvin Blomqvist after a dominant battle with Alfie Bevans earlier, but sadly a little mistake dropping him down the order. 7th is Charlie Morgan, and 2nd in the amateur standings he also is as well. 8th position went the way of Wagner Marquez after we mentioned a great comeback drive, with 9th position going the way of Tom Watson. He also finished 3rd in the amateur standings. 4th in the amateur standings and 10th overall is Runa Bertolfsson in the Porsche. Then Nick Manders late charge, but sadly will have to settle for 11th position and 5th in the Ambers class. Then it was Johnny Ashley, looked to be fast at the start of the day, but some little mistakes creeping into his drive see him finish in 12th. 13th goes the way of Simon Harris, with 14th going the way of Jacob Hine. Dmitro Yaroshenko finishes in 15th position in the Ferrari. Then 16th goes the way of Alex Parkin. 17th goes way of Zach Silver, who was the last of the running cars, with Zach Finney being disqualified early on in this race and Matt Townsend being a non-starter.
So that is the results, and that is the race. First round of the 100 series done. That's not meant to be there. We'll get back to that in a moment. This is our calendar coming up. Next round, we are at Interlagos. A wonderful track, makes for some brilliant racing, and hopefully we will see some more of our drivers that weren't able to make it this week, maybe because they weren't so keen on COTA National. I'll have to admit I was one of those drivers too when I was planning on racing. Hopefully we'll see some more of them for the great circuit that is Interlagos. Then round 3 we head to Monza Curva Grande. If you don't know, that is the layout where we skip the first chicane. It is flat out of Parabolica through the Curva Grande at top speed into this was normally the second chicane, which will act as the first braking zone on the lap. That will make Monza very high on the fuel consumption. We seen the Monza race last year was wet, and you were just about able to feel safe enough to make that a one-stop race. No rain this time, and even more straight lines, less braking zones should make this circuit even tougher on fuel. Might see 2 stops coming into play at Monza. You'll have to join us on 3rd of August to see that round. By the way, Interlagos also a wet round, so that will be quite chaotic, especially through that tight technical middle sector. Second half of the season starts with Sebring. Of course, we've already been there last season for the finale. This time, without the GT3 cars, how much of a difference will that make? We saw some different strategies. Some people not changing any tires, some people changing all 4 tires. Will we see more of that split strategy there? Sebring, we'll have to find out. Fuji then makes up our penultimate round. Classic, running without that chicane at the end of the middle sector. That long start-finish straight might make it quite a bit difficult on fuel, but the tight technical final sector does help make it a little bit easier. How much fuel saving will be required? Enough for a 2-stop? I'm not so sure, but plenty of fuel saving, I imagine, will be required before our season finale at Le Mans. Of course, the long circuit of the Circuit de la Sarthe. A lot of straights down the Mulsanne. We are running a variant with the chicanes, but fuel will definitely be very difficult as the drivers head out. That could be another track we see 2 pit stops made, if not a lot of fuel saving. By the way, our second wet race of the season will be Sebring, which will be mixed conditions, kind of like what we seen at Le Mans last year. So it'll be interesting to see how the drivers adapt with the wet conditions starting from next week at Interlagos. And anything that catches your eye specifically on the calendar you think will make for an extra special weekend, Tom?
A wet Interlagos. You've got to love a wet Interlagos because it's just such a phenomenal circuit. And then when it rains, it just adds a whole much more drama to the race as well. So I think we've got to look forward to that. That will be fantastic. I think Monza Curva Grande, as you mentioned, without the chicanes, could be rather chaotic as well. And, well, I mean, where else better to finish than Le Mans? Because, well, it's Le Mans. It's just the perfect venue.
Yeah, it is a wonderful one indeed. And that is not all. Season 4 here at oNiD for 2025 continues tomorrow with our GT3 MPG season. 65-minute races, full field of GT3 cars, double fuel usage. So, going to see at least 1 pit stop, most likely 2. So make sure you join us tomorrow to see some good strategy. It was a very unexpected strategy that won at last week's race. I won't spoil in case you haven't seen it. So yeah, make sure you join us for that tomorrow on Le Mans Ultimate once again. Then on Tuesday we have our Seto Corsa installment, our British Stock Car Series. It is round 2 at Castlecombe, the first of the sprint round. 3 20-minute races, the third of which is a full reverse grid. Lap times of 1 minute. It will get quite chaotic. It was very chaotic at Croft last week, so make sure you tune in on Tuesday for that. On Wednesday, we bring out the rookies for the Sim Hound Academy. The people newer to sim racing or less experienced are developing their skills, learning the ropes with the Sim Hound Academy, our only multi-class installment on the Mon Ultimate with GT3 cars and hypercars. 50 minutes means bit of strategy comes into play, some bit of fuel saving perhaps required. See how our slower and less experienced drivers deal with the challenges on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we have our GT3 Transatlantic Showdown. It's all about Europe versus North America. We had 32 cars join us earlier this week for the first round. 40 signed up. It's a packed grid. It was a great opening round at Daytona. Make sure you tune in for the second round on Thursday as we head to Road America for that. Before we return on next Sunday, as we mentioned, for Interlagos for the second round of the 100 series. Well, Tom, great racing coming up over the next week. Any final words on the action we've seen today?
I think it can only get better from here, really, can it? We've got a load more drivers to add to the championship going to Interlagos, and yeah, it can only get better. We're only moving up, and join us same time, same place next week.
Do indeed. Until then, thank you all very much for joining us. Take care, have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time. Good night.